What's happening, Stoveminders? Here we are at the tail end of January 2020. And like some late inning action, the hot stove is seeing some late winter action, some heat. While it looked like things were toning down, heat got cranked up for about a day, and not just in terms of free agent signings and trades, but also in terms of news. There was seemingly a lot of baseball news over the past day or so, and none of it had to do with the Astros, which is great. First and foremost is something that is a potential fundamental change to the game, and that is this belief going around National League managers, general managers that is, front offices, that the universal DH is coming soon. And if the front office feels this way, then the possibility is there. And here's why. First of all, there's the CBA expiration that's coming after the 2021 season. That means that big rule changes like this could be put on the table with a little more convenience than opening up a CBA while it's in place, since negotiations are happening anyway. There's the fact that such an adjustment would fall in line with Commissioner Manfred's agenda for more offense. And it's something that I think the Players Association is open for. Or open to, rather. Why? Because it's more jobs. It's more guys like Nelson Cruz and Edwin Encarnacion who can still hit and hit really well, but aren't exactly going to be doing a lot of running around the field. It won't necessarily take away a pitcher's job, since no pitcher is hired because he can hit. And apparently it's something that has been discussed before, or at least proposed before, as a trade-off for the implementation of a 3-batter minimum for pitchers who don't finish an inning. So while it's not a certainty, the fact that NL GMs and front offices believe this will happen kind of makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, not for certain. It's not something I would like. I follow a National League team. I like the way the game is played. I like how it makes interleague matchups in the World Series just that much funner and special. Speaking of specialty, the fact that AL and the NL are distinct in that way is something that other sports don't have. It's one of those baseball things that I think is unique and interesting and fun. And for everybody who says, oh, but the pitchers are free out. No, I've seen games decided on the pitcher's bat. And if you can't accommodate for that, learn to manage. It's called strategy. Also, a move that I like is apparently next year, Major League umpires are going to be given a microphone, similar to referees in the NFL, to announce decisions on challenges. And that's nice. That's nice, because sometimes I watch a game and something's going down on the field, and I, as a fan, whether I'm at the ballpark or watching it, I don't know what's going on because the umpires don't have a way to communicate to the crowd other than a safe or out hand gesture. So to get some sort of explanation on things would be nice. So that change to the game, I welcome. That adaptation to technology, I'm happy about. And in baseball media news, ESPN is moving our girl Jessica Mendoza out of the Sunday Night Baseball broadcast booth. A tough hit for Jessie Mendoza. Does it have anything to do with the dirt she threw on Mike Fears for whistleblowing about the Astros cheating system? I don't know. But we won't be hearing her next year. We may not be hearing Matt Vasgersian either. And I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with ESPN's broadcasts. I understand why people don't like Mendoza, and I don't just mean, because she's a woman, because sometimes her analysis is not exactly groundbreaking or insightful. But she clearly has a passion for baseball. So, yeah, get it. Get it some way that you can. Just won't be on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball next year. And I thought I wasn't going to talk about the Astros, but I'm going to talk about the Astros. So, the Baseball Writers Association of America had a banquet to hand out awards, and there he was, Justin Verlander, getting his Cy Young, and he was apparently cracking jokes about the Astros cheating scandal, saying that the team was technologically and analytically advanced. You know what? Justin Verlander is someone who's been very outspoken about matters of the game before, such as the composition of balls, are they juiced or not, about unwritten rules and such. So for him to come up here, having never made an apology or really addressed the scandal at all, to just come up here making a joke of it, it was not received well by some of the players in attendance, such as CC Sabathia, who allegedly just flat out left. And it ties back to the fact that the Astros players who benefited and may have in some way participated in the system have gone completely unpunished. Dallas Keuchel, who's not even on the Astros anymore, is the only one to have made any sort of apology. He's now on the White Sox, and he said he's sorry. He also kind of, justified it by saying, we weren't doing it every day. And as a pitcher, Keuchel and Verlander weren't exactly benefiting from it. It was the hitters who were getting the signs, the tips as to what the opposing pitcher was throwing. So I'm not holding them to the same standard as like an Altuve or a Bregman, but Verlander, if you want to be a voice for baseball like you've been before, this is not the way to do it. And finally, I can get to the matters at hand, the stove matters, because two huge moves went down in just one day. That was yesterday, Monday, January 27th. Two big moves, a signing and a trade. Let's start with the free agent signing. One man remains. I've been touting around, who are the important free agents. Well, only Yasiel Puig remains unsigned, and that means Nicholas Castellanos has put ink to paper, talking 4 years, $64 million to play with the Cincinnati Reds next season and possibly beyond. The Reds just continue to build. Man, Castellanos. Okay, so there's a few things about this deal. On the surface, 4 years, $64 million. That's the exact same amount of money the Reds gave Mike Moustakas back in November. But this deal's got a bunch of caveats. First of all is the option, the 5th-year option, team option, / buyout. That's pretty common these days. But then something we haven't seen a lot of this winter, and that's opt-outs. Castellanos has 2 opt-outs, one after next season, 2020, and then after the season after that, 2021, so in his first 2 years. Why? Well, Castellanos has remained unsigned for this long because he's a Scott Boras client. He's coming off a very good season. He hit very well the year before that too, and he's been consistent for most of his career now. He was probably hoping for a big deal. And at $16 million a year on average, that's not bad at all. But maybe he was looking for something a little more lucrative. So, if the market for hitters is a little more shallow next offseason or the one after that, Castellanos, if he's still playing at the level he is, still hitting doubles like a madman, he could opt out and look for some more money. Or he might stay in Cincinnati, and I could see that happening because this is a Reds team that's clearly very committed to winning, and one thing Castellanos said after he was traded from the Tigers to the Cubs last summer, he said he likes being part of a winning culture. Well, I'm glad he said that about the Cubs before they just cratered again and failed to win. Castellanos is turning just 28 this upcoming spring, meaning that he can exercise those options into his age 29 and 30 seasons, still relatively young to get a medium-term deal similar to the one that he just signed. So if there's more money on the table, I can see him taking that. So about that Castellanos, as I said, doubles machine. Last season he hit 58 doubles. That's the 10th longest streak ever in Major League Baseball. And just one double shy of the modern day, that is post-1930s record, 59 doubles hit by Todd Helton in 2000. So a historic season just by that measure. And of the 6 full campaigns that Castellanos has put in, just 1 year did he hit less than 30 doubles. In the past 4 years, he's hit between about 270 and 300 and has a career 277 batting average. Last year, he hit 289, split between the Cubs and Tigers. He also had a 337 on base, which is higher than career average, but in that 330 range, again, the past 4 years, he's been on a roll. And in terms of power, 27 home runs last year was a career high, but he's hit 20 or more home runs in 3 straight seasons. So all the tools are there for a potent, top-of-the-lineup hitter. The drawback to Castellanos is the man cannot play in the field. He has been consistently bad at either third base, where he started his career, or right field, where he moved a few years ago. And he's been, a little better in right than at third, but still, for a guy who's consistently posting negative defensive runs saved, it's not great. And why that matters for the Reds is this is a team that's very deep. Let's say Castellanos, with his bat, is going to be in the lineup almost every day, over in right field. That means Aristides Aquino, who played there mostly last season, will be shifting across to left field, where he'll have to split time with Phillip Ervin and Jesse Winker. But maybe one of those two guys can fill in at center field. However, Reds signed Shogo Akiyama out of Japan. They clearly have high hopes for this guy. Maybe he falters, maybe he doesn't. One name I did mention was the Reds center fielder last season. That is Nick Senzel, their former top prospect. And apparently, now with the acquisition of Castellanos, Senzel is on the trade block. He had a pretty disappointing rookie season, to be fair. And center field, not his natural position. He was mostly an infielder in the minors, second and third base. But both of those positions are also covered and well covered by Moustakas and Eugenio Suarez. And first base, Joey Votto. Shortstop is the one place in the infield where the Reds have a clear and obvious need for an improvement. All due respect to Freddie Galvis, he can play shortstop, but he's kind of average in that sense. Out of all these guys I just mentioned, Senzel is someone who can fetch a very high return. Again, former top prospect who just has not shown it in the majors yet. But for a young, controllable, and still promising asset like Senzel, I don't think the Reds will move him unless they get that big blockbuster multi-prospect or multi-piece deal. And maybe instead we'll see them move one of these excess outfielders or infielders. All that remains to be seen, but for now what I can say is Castellanos on the Reds just makes this team even better. And I think I said this last week, when everyone has their turn to make their lists and their predictions, a lot of people are going to be saying the Reds are going to win the NL Central, and this is looking like a playoff team, for sure. The one team that the Reds beat out at the end of it all, there were many teams looking after Castellanos, of course, the Cubs included, but at the end of it, the final decision came to either the Reds or the Rangers. And how tragic have the Texas Rangers been? They missed out on Castellanos, they missed out on Ozuna, they missed out on Rendon, they got Corey Kluber, and that was a bargain, but is he going to be healthy next season? I don't know. Best of luck to you, Texas. Now on to the trade. And there have been many big-ticket names floated around the trade rumors this winter. Apparently, Francisco Lindor, Mookie Betts, David Price, Chris Bryant, Wilson Contreras have all been seriously talked about between front offices. But one player who might not be the sort of superstar that some of those guys I just mentioned are, but still a very good all-around ball player, is Starling Marte. And he's been traded by the Pittsburgh Pirates out west to the desert, to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Power move by the Snakes. Starling will now join the other Marte, Ketel Marte? Ketel, apparently. But the two Martes are both on the same team, and they might both be playing in the same axis. Ketel was their center fielder last season, but before that, he was a middle infielder, and that's probably where he's going to move back to next year, second or short, and Starling Marte will most likely play in center field, and he'll be there for next year, and maybe the one after that too. Starling is earning $11.5 million in 2020, of which $1.5 million will be paid for by the Pirates, and after that, he has a team option for $12.5 million in 2021, and I have a feeling the Diamondbacks will exercise that, because Marte has been very good for the most part in his career. Now, in 2017, he was suspended for half the season for performance-enhancing drugs, and the other half of that year was not very good. Well, it was okay. It was alright. It wasn't bad. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's bad, but it was a step back from the sort of all-star to almost MVP level numbers he was putting up before. And likewise, his 2018 campaign was not great either. But in 2019, Starling came back in a big way. 132 games, /295, 342, 503 with, count it, 23 home runs, 31 doubles, 6 triples, and 25 stolen bases. And that's who Starling Marte was even when he was taking roids or whatever. In his 8-year career, he owns a .287 career batting average with a .793 OPS. 7 times in his 8-year career, he's stolen 20 or more bases with a high of 47. He'll get you at least in the teens of the home runs, maybe 20 plus, especially these days. And he can play the field as well. He's rated as an above-average outfielder with 2 Gold Gloves in his cupboard. He rates well at both center field and left field, where he's played the vast majority of his career. Toolsy, fairly consistent. Why trade him? Well, Marte these days, 31 years of age. The Pirates are going into a rebuild. I think it was best for both parties to move on and for Pittsburgh to at least get the biggest return they could get. And they got a pretty good one, I'd say. They got 2 prospects, an infielder and a pitcher, both of whom are now in the organization's top 10 prospects. First off is a shortstop named Liover Peguero, a 19-year-old Dominican who's now 7th in the Pirates' prospect rankings. Peguero tore up rookie ball and made it to Class A short season last season. Did all right there. He's fast, he makes good contact, and he's got a good glove too, drawing comparisons to Gene Segura, but an even better defender, apparently. And alongside Peguero, the Pirates got right-handed pitcher Brennan Malone. Also 19, he's their number 8th ranked prospect. Malone was a first-rounder this past summer, meaning he's only had half a season of rookie ball. The stats aren't there yet, but other numbers are. I'm talking a 99-mile-an-hour fastball already, plus a very good slider. Both guys are young. They're not going to be in the league for a while, but very high upside for sure. I'm sure the Pirates waited around for a while. They've been shopping Marte for at least a year. Couldn't get a bigger return. I'd say they should be satisfied with this one. And as for just roster ramifications for the Diamondbacks, if Marte is going to be in, if Starling Marte is going to be in center and Ketel Marte is going to be at second base, Eduardo Escobar, I think, will move to third base, and Jake Lamb, who's just not playing good baseball, will move to the bench. I don't think anyone's going to displace Nick Ahmed, the multi-time Gold Glove shortstop. Another great addition for the Diamondbacks. On to some lower key moves that have gone down the past several days. The Miami Marlins, who I'd say have had a low-key good offseason, adding Jonathan Villar, bringing in Corey Dickerson, and now right-handed reliever Brandon Kinsler on a 1-year contract guaranteed $3.25 million, plus an option, of course. Kinsler, 35 years of age with a track record of success, including in high-leverage situations. He was the former Minnesota Twins closer. Across his 10-year career, he owns a .337 ERA with a very similar .373 FIP, 1.247 WHIP, and a 6-2 strikeout to walk through 9 ratio, but a career 56% ground ball rate. But what about most recently for old Kinsler? Well, he's coming off a very good year in Chicago. With the Cubs, he threw 57 innings past season, .268 ERA, .356 FIP, 1.018 WHIP, and a 54.7 ground ball percentage. bounce back year after a not so great 2018. Marlins should feel comfortable rolling him out of their bullpen. A steady and healthy veteran presence. The Marlins relief core was 21-34 last year, so anything's an improvement, and this is a sure improvement. And they signed another veteran too, outfielder Matthew Joyce, to a contract that is a minor league deal. The 35-year-old lefty is coming off a nice campaign working primarily off the bench for the Braves. In 238 plate appearances, or 200 at-bats, he slashed 295, 408, 450. Definitely far above his career average, where he's profiled as a pretty average hitter. 12 years, 243 batting, 343 on base, actually good, and a 432 slugging, a 113 OPS plus. Not a bad guy to have come hitting off the bench. He can hit between 15 to 20 plus home runs. He gets a lot of walks. Not necessarily a good outfielder, but I think the Marlins signed him more for their offense as sort of a plug and play around the platoons that they've got going on all over the place. Again, as a left-handed hitter, perfect for a platoon situation. He is a corner outfielder, and the Marlins also signed Corey Dickerson this winter, meaning that Joyce might see most of his time coming out of right field, where Harold Ramirez held things down respectably so last season. And who knows? Who knows? They'll get creative, fit him in there some way. Not a bad minors deal. Speaking of minors deals, those keep trickling in. The Mets signed Eduardo Nunez, the infielder, coming off a pretty bad 2019 with the Red Sox, where Nunez appeared in 60 games. He hit 228 with a 243 on base. Disgusting. But this is a promising. Nunez has been a good contact hitter in 10 seasons, 278 batting average with a 310 on base. He can play second, third, or short, although his numbers are bad. He's an active base runner in terms of doubles and steals and all that. The Mets' infield spots are claimed, however, they also have Jed Lowry coming off an injury-shortened season, so Nunez will probably see some action off the bench or as a pinch hitter. And the Washington Nationals surprised me with this one, with two moves actually. They signed Wellington Castillo to a minors deal. Castillo, the former Cubs catcher, coming off a pretty bad season at the plate for the White Sox, and that's notable because Castillo, not exactly good behind the plate despite his strong arm. He's been more of a hitting catcher in that sense, but a guy who hit 209 last year, 254 in his 10-year career with a 98 career OPS plus. He's got some power, but he will be 33 years old, and the Nationals do have Yan Gomes and Kurt Suzuki in front of him. But if an injury happens, then they have a veteran to call on in Wellington Castillo. Speaking of veterans, the Nationals also re-signed Ryan Zimmerman to a 1-year, $2 million deal. This one is surprising, but also not, because Zimmerman is a career National. Mr. National, in fact. He's been on the team for as long as they've been in Washington. But the 35-year-old is not the player he once was. Yeah, he's 3 years removed from an all-star campaign, but he's been about a 260 hitter the last 2 seasons, appeared in limited action, and he'll have to compete even more for playing time at first base, with the Nationals having signed Howie Kendrick and Eric Thames. I could see Kendrick playing elsewhere, and Thames, too. These guys are not, hard and fast first baseman in the same way that Zimmerman is, but a very deep team over there in DC. And for Zimmerman to get a major league deal too, at $2 million, when veterans with similar skill levels are getting minors deals, that's a loyalty contract. As I said, he's been on the Nationals 15 years. Yeah, he's gonna get some more. And I'm sure Nationals fans know this, but Zimmerman was born in a town called Washington in North Carolina. Fun fucking fact. And speaking of re-signings, or rather extensions, the Colorado Rockies made a good move in extending Trevor Story 2 years, $27.5 million, which will cover the rest of his arbitration eligibility. This is interesting because Story in arbitration apparently put up $11.5 million as his claim. The team countered with 10 3/4, yet he's going to get 13 3/4 a year on average over the next 2 years. So I don't know. Did they just say, like, fuck it, let's not meet in the middle, let's go higher than either of us? What? Well, for Story, he deserves it. He deserves it. In the last 2 years, he's been a .290 hitter with a .350 on base, .560 slugging? Jesus. This is a guy who can hit into the 30s with home runs. He can steal bases. He hits a lot of doubles. He's an all-star. He's a 2-time Silver Slugger. Good glove, too. His only knock is that he strikes out a lot. But a show of stability for a Rockies team that's been hounded by Arenado rumors and not much else this winter. So will they try to get something out of this core here late in their window? Perhaps. Again, I like this for the Rockies, and I like this for Story because he's been balling out. He deserves that payday. And finally, Cubscast. What do the Cubs do? Well, they signed 2 players this past several days, a pitcher and a fielder. The outfielder in question is Steven Souza Jr., a player who they've been interested in through the winter, and personally I am not excited about this move. Souza missed all of 2019 due to injury. He played in only 72 games in 2018, and in parts of 5 seasons, he's a .233 hitter, .323 on base, .417 slugging, okay, 101 OPS plus, but a below average contact hitter with some power who can run bases when he's healthy. He is a strikeout machine with about a third of his plate appearances ending in a punch-out. And defensively, he's pedestrian. So really, this move fills me with zero confidence. It's a low addition to this outfield mix. Maybe put some pressure on Almora and Happ to perform, and Schwarber, but otherwise not a good signing. I'm not wild about it. I am more intrigued in this pitcher that the Cubs signed, talking about Jeremy Jeffress, someone Cubs fans are probably familiar with from his time as a Brewer. Jeffress, the 32-year-old sinker baller, is coming off a bad 2019. He was bad. 52 innings. What did he do? He have ERA over 5, FIP just under 4. His strikeout and walk totals were pretty stable. He allowed a lot more hits than usual. And his velocity dropped, which is apparently the main cause of his struggles. Just 2 years ago, 2018, he was absolutely lights out. So maybe this is the pendulum returning to a more even swing. Jeffress, a 10-year veteran, has a career .316 ERA and a .362 FIP, 1.347 WHIP, and a strikeout to walk through 9 ratio of 8.3 to 3.7. And as a sinker baller, he doesn't allow a lot of home runs, which for the Cubs is important. So if he can gain anything even like his career average, I think we'll see Jeffress out of the bullpen. If I said this was a Miters deal, I lied. It is a majors deal, $850,000 salary with $200,000 in incentives. So a low cost, somewhat of an upside addition to the Cubs pitching staff, which I do like. And apparently the Cubs are interested in Scooter Gennett. And to that I say no. No, I said no when they were interested in Souza and they signed him. I said no when they were interested in Ellsbury, and I hope the fucking God they don't sign Ellsbury. They better not sign fucking Scooter Gennett. And as a low-intensity segue out of Cubscast, let's talk about an ex-Cub. A former Cub manager, Dusty Baker, is apparently getting added to the Houston Astros clubhouse. Old Dusty Baker is a grand total of 70 years old as of right now. He was turning 71 next year. He has 22 seasons of big league management experience, and that includes some definite success. He managed a very good San Francisco Giants team from 93 to 2002. So last year he won the NL pennant with the Giants, although they lost the World Series to the Angels. Follow that up with 4 seasons at the helm for the Cubs, which started out all right and then gradually declined from there. Then he went over to Cincinnati, where he managed for 6 years, from 2008 to 2013. Put in some quality seasons there as well. And then most recently, 2016 and 17, he managed the Nationals, where they did well in the regular season but couldn't quite get to the playoffs. All in all, a career .532 winning percentage. Doesn't exactly have the top pedigree, and he's come along with a lot of criticism. From what I can remember, he was the Cubs manager when I started watching, as I was a kid. I remember he killed pitchers. He murdered Mark Pryor. He almost murdered Kerry Wood. He had his freaking wristbands. That's all I can say about Dusty Baker. I had a feeling the Astros were going for like a veteran manager who was going to go in here and not let any sort of bullshit go down, and their options were kind of slim. Dusty Baker, Buck Showalter, though I think he's enjoying his time as a Yes Network call-in analyst. So Dusty Baker it is. This is unofficial. I have to say this again. It's expected, but it's still in the discussion stage to be said. So in retrospect, this may go down to being a no, but if you're listening to this in the future for whatever friggin' reason, Dusty Baker almost became the manager of the Houston Astros post-cheating scandal. So that about does it for Cubscast, and that about does it for this episode of the Stoveminders Cubscast. February is just around the corner. We're just weeks away from baseball really getting going. There's some other stuff I want to talk about, like MLB Pipeline released their new top 100 prospects list. There's the Caribbean series coming up that I think is worth noting. I might get to that in a few days, but for now, I just wanted to wrap up all this flurry of activity and stove unexpectedly warm. I don't think it'll stay warm, but keep minding that stove because I didn't expect it to get this hot. It might just get hot again.